Hi, I'm Jeff Frederick. I'm going to go over some more tips for running mouth calls. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the main goal of breaking your mouth calls in. And I want to talk a little bit about latex and having overly wet reeds, what that does to your call. And then I'm going to wrap it up with some gobbling and try and give you a little more input on how I figured out how to gobble on a mouth call. So one thing that, as we've been doing these videos, I've been breaking in a set of calls. A lot of them are just kind of experimental calls that I make when I'm sitting here at the table and building some calls. I did lose one call that the latex started to get dry and was cracking, and it was a call that I had only ran one time, and then I put it in here and I let it sit there and I didn't run it again. So I want to encourage you to follow through with your break-in. Once you use the call one time, then what you want to do is be committed to running it at least 4 or 5 or 6 days in a row. Now, this period of break-in, one of the really important things that the break-in does for a mouth call is that it allows the latex to change to the point where it doesn't get oversaturated. A brand new call, if you put it in your mouth and you leave it in there for hours on end, basically latex is kind of like a sponge, and the more it's, in moisture, the more it absorbs that moisture and it gets kind of thicker and less dense, and there's more moisture actually in the reed. I call that an over wet reed. When your call is over wet, it doesn't sound as good. It's going to be a little squeakier. It's not going to have the same tone as a dry call. This is very important to get your call ready for hunting season. Because if you're like me, I like to just keep a call in my mouth for a long period of time. But what you really want to do is keep using that call, go through that break-in period, and what happens, and this is just a theory of mine, but basically our spit interacts with the latex. It soaks into that latex. And then when it dries, there's something in our spit that makes that reed change its composition. And what I found is after you spend some time using it for a little while, drying it, using it for a little while, drying, using it, that repeated process, the call becomes more resistant to moisture, and you can leave it in your mouth for a longer period of time. So what's important about that is that you don't take a brand new call and use it for hours on end. And you'll notice over wet reeds basically the color is more vivid, like if it's a colored reed, or if it's a clear reed or a white reed, it turns very white and you can tell, and it's not going to sound as good. You want to avoid getting your reeds over wet. So here's a call that I've been using more. So I really been doing a good job at using this call multiple times, and I'm actually only using it 3 to 5 minutes, just to the point where it's getting good and wet, and then I set it down and I let it dry again. But this one, you'll notice how you can see there's a yellow reed on top. You can start seeing through that yellow reed to the green one underneath. It starts to get clear. That is an indication that it's getting to the point where you can leave it in your mouth for a longer period of time. So let's see how this call sounds. Again, I like to speed up the reed separation a little bit when I'm practicing at home. Just using a little sword, getting that upper part of the reed separated. And then again, I kind of go back to checking out the tones of the call. Okay, so that one's breaking in real nice. I'm not losing any tone or volume, and I know that the call is breaking in really good. Reeds are getting clear. Again, this call, I'm going to be hunting in a few weeks. This call's getting more and more ready for me to hunt with and leave in my mouth longer. So one of the things that I've done other videos on, but it's a tough call to master. I'm going to talk about the gobble. So the gobble is, it can be tricky, but you really need to master running the call off of the back of your tongue. So today when I was practicing, I was trying to figure out how to describe what I'm doing inside my mouth when I'm doing the gobble. Most important thing is that all the call control is on the back of my tongue. It's the and it's a very hard, I'm using a lot of pressure on the call with the back of my tongue. I did notice that I do use the front of my tongue, but it's important to understand that I'm not using the front of my tongue to control the call. I'm using it on the roof of my mouth as a t part of the k, t, k, t. So here, I'll run it kind of slower to help break it down so that you can hear what is happening. So that is all of the back of my tongue doing that. And if you heard the t, that's where I incorporate the t from the front of my tongue. But the front of my tongue isn't doing anything to the call. It's more doing something to the air coming out. The thing is learning how to put a lot of pressure upwards while making those sounds. The other thing I noticed is that at the start of the gobble, it's more the k with the back of my tongue, and the end of the gobble is a little bit more of the t, the front of my tongue off the roof of my mouth. The other thing I like to do is use a megaphone like this, especially when I'm out trying to roost birds. It adds a lot of volume to the gobble itself. So if you like my tips, subscribe to my channel. My tips are going to start to become a little more random, I think, because I'm talking to customers. I'm trying to help them make certain sounds, and I come up with ideas on what to add into my tips. And then I also am going to be starting to hunt pretty soon. So as I'm hunting, I'm going to think of extra tips to give you.